Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. We got a great show this evening. We're going to do two authors who have written books about topics of interest to you. Our second segment, we have a former police officer who got some very, very interesting intrigue about his career as a NYPD officer, and he wrote a book about it in the 52nd precinct in the Bronx. So we'll do that in our second segment. But in our first segment, let's see, a veteran New York-based journalist and broadcaster who's written about the media for the Daily News, Broadcasting and Cable, and Barrett News Media. He's a news editor currently at patch.com on Long Island. Well, hello to Jerry Barmash. Nice to meet you.
Gary, thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
So the book is And Now the News.
Here Now
the News, which we can see right up. I guess that's to your, I don't know if it's broadcast, so it's to your right or to your left.
Yeah, my left.
But tell me about what inspired you, because it is a very detailed piece about news anchors in New York City, people that we have all watched for years. What got you the idea that maybe this was worth a book, which it was?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I didn't know initially if it was. I had to see how many interviews I was getting and how many anecdotes I had along the way. And at some point I looked back and it was almost surreal. I'm like, wow, there's something here. There's a book here. Because, you're in a bubble. You're doing this and you're like, I'm interested. My wife is interested. And I know some people on Facebook who are in broadcasting would be interested. But after that, I'm like, is this something that will actually not even sell, but is this something that would, gain attention, gain interest? And I think there's something there. And the New York is interesting because it's about the legends of New York TV news over the decades. Really goes back to the 60s in the book, and the focus becomes the 70s. But I tell people that you don't have to know the names Grimsby or Butel or Simmons or Scarborough or Anastas or Jensen or whoever. I think these anecdotes are kind of universal.
Listen, they're unbelievable. There's so much in there, and there's unbelievable stuff in there. You mentioned that you did it through interviews, which was clear. What was the access, or did you say, hi, I'm writing a book, can I pop by and hang out with you and learn about everything that you know? or were you, because you're a media guy, were you involved in some of the stations? You work at the stations? Did you have relationships with any of these people, or were you really going out there as a reporter?
Good question. I didn't meet most of them. Most of them were on the phone. And some of the people I had connections with already from being in the media. I've either written about media or been in radio for a number of years. I've connected on social media over the years. So there was a connection to people. And then a lot of this there was an old commercial in the 70s for shampoo. You'll tell two friends and they'll tell two friends, and so on and so on. And there was a lot of that. I would tell somebody what I was doing, and they didn't know where it was going to go, but they liked the idea of it going down memory lane. And they said, you should speak to this news director, or I can get you in touch with this.
So this was interesting to me, because it's so intimate and there's so many details of, one day we were sitting at the desk and he cursed at me, or whatever it was that you got. All of that was done through interviews. That's fascinating, because normally it's kind of like you were there, you saw it happen, then you ask somebody afterwards. But so that's what really, this was like an interview book. You deserve a lot of credit.
Yeah, I interviewed 60, 65 people for this. Easily. Yeah. And a lot of these people, either the main ones aren't around anymore, the Jensens, Butel and Grimsby. Yes. But others that I interviewed for the book also have passed on. And I am so pleased that I was able to probably have for their last interviews. Frank Field, for example, Al Primo, who created Eyewitness News.
Eyewitness News, yeah. What was your fascination with anchors? Or did you just think it's kind of a nice idea and I think I'll write a book about it? Or was there something for you that said, "Ooh, this is compelling"?
Well, first of all, I've been in radio for years, not TV, but there was something, even when I was a kid and I was in the mid 70s, I was not even a teenager yet. I was born in '68. There was something about these anchor men, and they primarily were all anchor men. And we
which
talk
is
about
one of
that
the
in the
very
book.
big issues in the book. But
Yeah.
yes, go ahead.
And while I'm going, even as a kid, even young and watching, and I realize in those early days, those formative years, if you will, that there's something. They say is there something there was something
There's
there.
something there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
And,
felt it.
uh, what was interesting is and one thing that you said really at the beginning of the book is that every family had their station. And I was thinking, because now I watch Channel 4 a lot, frankly. But when I was a kid, my parents watched Channel 2. So I saw Jim Bouton doing the sports, and Ron Swoboda, I think, was on CBS. I mean, always been a sports fan. But when you mentioned Roland Smith, I was like, yeah, I could still see that guy, So there was really a lot of that kind of memory, and I'm sure other people, maybe our age or otherwise, would appreciate it. The other question that was burning in me, and now I'm thrilled that I get the opportunity to ask you: were they thrilled with the outcome? In other words, I'm just going to say it. You mentioned that Sue Simmons used the C word a lot, and I mean, I don't know. Did somebody call you and say, you have some freaking nerve? How do you put that in a book? Or because there's such public people that what the hell? Let them learn what's going on. Have you gotten that kind of feedback of people saying, wait a minute, what did you expose us all? That kind of thing?
No, I haven't heard anyone,
Oh, good.
Sue or otherwise. No one has said, "Why did you do that?" And that's interesting about that word. I was tempted. Do I? It's a warts and all kind of portrayal. I'm trying to show that these people were humans, even though they were legends, and I hope that it shows as a labor of love what I thought of these people. And I was conflicted. Should I put that word in there? And I thought, you know what? This is showing what the newsroom was like, what these people were, that they were characters, and
Right.
I thought it was important to put it in.
And if I'm going to tell the truth, I gotta tell the truth. I want to ask you. I mentioned to you before, and maybe people in the public who know me from my work at BronxNet don't know, but I did work at Channel 4 for a little while. I mentioned it to you beforehand, so I had interaction with Chuck and Sue and Len Berman and all the others. What wasn't totally clear to me, because Sue Simmons, essentially her contract was not renewed. It, Nobody's ever articulated it, unless I missed it. It wasn't clear in the book. Do we know why they ended her contract? Was it simply that, if you're a woman, you can't start to look old? And she certainly was a singular personality, or is a singular personality. So maybe they said, well, we've had enough. It doesn't fly with the ratings. I mean, I don't know. Do you have any sense of why she was terminated or not renewed?
I mean, it's always, they don't say fire, but it's not renewed, the contract. No, I don't have a specific answer to that. I
Interesting.
think it could be also the change of ownership when it became Comcast.
Yes, that could be.
I think it could have been a situation where, looking to just cut a few dollars, more than a few dollars, of course.
Yeah, you talked a lot about the tales of drinking and carousing, and certainly going through the 60s and 70s when they would not put two women together, which is certainly not the case now. You see it all over the place. Um, uh, just tell me a little bit about that and the change that I guess ultimately had to happen, right?
Yeah.
Although the tales that you tell about many of the anchors, someone like Carol Martin and others, were very angry about the way that they had been treated in New York City big TV newsrooms.
Yeah, and I also, it makes me think of this story when Chuck and Sue first started, and chemistry didn't come immediately, and they weren't Chuck and Sue initially. And they, of course, had historic run that broke all records, 32 and a half years. But at the beginning, as I say in the book, Sue, who had that singular personality, she could be a little off the wall, when warranted, and not when there's a serious fire or a murder story. But she could have a little bit more of her personality, which is shine through in different ways and different times. She was told that she could show that exuberant, let's say,
right. They liked that in the beginning,
but she was told that she could only do that, not how we are now in a 2-shot. She could only do it on the 1-shot
when she was alone. So it didn't.
So it would, because it would be kind of guilty by association, and they didn't want Chuck to be involved in it.
I don't want to run out of time, but the Harry Reasoner, Barbara Walters relation. Imagine being disrespectful to Barbara Walters. I mean, I can't. And Harry Reasoner was so well respected. And I'm going to quote from the book. He would go every night across the street before the show and have, I guess, a couple of beers with guys. It was an all boys club, and they would talk about how terrible I was, referring to Barbara Walters after she had gotten, the anchor job over there. Just incredible. There's so much I want to ask you about. We only have a couple of minutes. Roger Grinsby was a much larger figure in the news community than we were all aware of, as far as I know. I mean, I was Channel 2, not Channel 7, but he was a big guy in a way.
Yeah, he was. And, if I can switch quickly, who I found that was really beloved by the people I interviewed, the people in the business over the years, was Tom Snyder. That was the one that everybody singularly, just all to a man or a woman, thought was the most professional, the best news anchor. And a lot of people may not realize that he had done news anchoring in New York.
I have to tell you, I forgot all about it, again, because I was focused on Channel 2 when I was growing up. And of course, I knew him from the Tomorrow Show, interviewing John Lennon and all the other things he had done. But I had forgotten about that. Listen, we're going to run out of time. Here Now the News is the book. And folks, it's wherever books are sold, you can get them online. You can find it anywhere you want. So congratulations for writing something that really, really opened my eyes up. And I've been in broadcasting. This is my 48th year in broadcasting. So I mean, I've seen a lot of different stuff. Final question: you have a favorite anchor, either now or from back then? Somebody that you just think the world of, regardless of whether they drink before the show or not?
I have to give longevity and the way that he handled breaking news. I have to give it to Chuck Scarborough.
Yeah. Okay. We'll accept that, ladies and gentlemen, from the guy who wrote Here Now the News. I recommend it. I spent a lot of time with it, especially over this holiday weekend when I had the time to read it. And Jerry Barmash, thank you so much for joining us. Here Now the News. And I will tell people a sneak preview on our other show, Bronx Talk. Jerry's going to come on. We're going to talk about the death of WCBS radio, and we'll do that sometime in October. Jerry, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll do another book. We haven't ever done that before, and this will be an inside look of the 52nd precinct in the borough of the Bronx. Fascinating inside look. Don't go away. We'll be right back.